You don't think this is a bad sign? This is earlier than you'd expected to perhaps raise the flow?
Well, no, as a matter of fact, when we first talked to you earlier on this evening, we had expected regular increments, possibly reaching to 230,000 cubic feet per second by sometime tomorrow. The fact that the Corps held the flow at 140,000 for 2 or 3 hours actually was a real blessing. So we are behind still the projected incremental flow from the dam that they had originally given us early this evening.
How's communication between the Corps and the city?
It's excellent. We have Corps members present.
Okay. So, well, I'm just concerned about the conflict we had before, and here you had to make a change.
Okay, we did not have to make a change.
Okay.
If I may possibly rectify the conflicting information there. At the 140,000 cubic foot per second flow, where we had indicated that there would be no substantial flooding, we realized that there may be a possibility that storm water inlets along the banks of the Arkansas may have, in a location or two, a flapper gate that was not operational or in the wrong position. If that had been the case, any backflow into that sewer system could have and would have been easily handled by a sandbagging operation. It was that possibility that the Corps was referring to, and it was really a matter of language at that point.
So what's going to be the extent of the flooding in Tulsa with the flows that we have currently?
At the 160,000, we still don't anticipate any significant flooding problems in the city, Joe. That, like I said, that keeps us below the 170,000 projection that we had made, and all 5 of those areas that we identified in the city that could be affected by 170,000 flow were really pretty minor in nature anyway. So, and we're still going to be about 10,000 below that projection, so we feel like we'll be in very good shape. I might add, too, that all indications from the field at this point in time are that there is no flood activity anywhere in the city. So,
how long do you anticipate staying at 160,000 cubic?
Well, we're just going to have to keep checking with the Corps on a regular basis.
Does it look like that may be able to hold through the night, or does it look like we'll have to make another incremental?
I really don't have that information. Okay, a few additional things for you. We had talked about some of the ancillary things that are going on.
Police Department, Police Chief Mike Baker, Mayor Dick Crawford, and Bill Gamble from the Corps of Engineers say that they have a significant announcement to make on the situation with the releases of the water from Keystone Lake. We'll go to them and hear what they have to say.
Okay, thank you all very much. We do have a statement of significant impact to make at this time. To update everyone, at 10 p.m. this evening, the flow from Keystone Dam was 160,000 cubic feet per second. Barring any significant change in the information that the Corps has available to them right now, that flow will continue until daybreak, approximately 6 this morning, when the advantage of daylight and time to assess the effect of the current flow should give everyone some more information to base some further decisions on. With us this evening is Mayor Crawford, who would like then at this time to make a brief statement.
I just want to assure the citizens of Tulsa that you're in good hands here. Captain Baker, all the people at the Emergency Operations Center have been monitoring the situation on a minute-by-minute basis. We, as the captain just stated, will be holding at the 160,000 figure until 6 a.m. unless there would be a significant development in between that time from now until 6 a.m. And if there is, certainly we'll get back to you immediately. We've had Bill here with us also to show that this has been a coordinated and orchestrated effort all through the evening, and now the early hours of the morning.
Mr. Gamble, would you, I think in order to further clarify what may constitute a significant change in the information between now and daybreak, Mr. Gamble, could you comment on that for just a second?
First, I should remind you that earlier broadcasts we talked in terms of additional information from the Perkins gauge. That is a gauge that's out near Stillwater on the Cimarron River. We have still been unable to obtain this additional information. We have sent 3 crews out, and 2 of them have been stuck, and the 3rd one is still trying to get in. This information would have to be radically different than what we have so far for us to make a change prior to 6 a.m. If this came in, we're talking in terms of maybe 40 or 50,000 cubic feet per second increased inflow into Keystone more than what we had anticipated. If that were to happen, we would have to make some adjustment. But we don't anticipate this, and we think that we will remain at the 160,000 at least until daybreak, until we can assess it as Mr. Baker has indicated.
Mayor Crawford, we understand that the Stormwater Management Department crews are back in-house and have told you what they have found. Could you tell us what they saw?
Joe, if you would allow me to go ahead and answer some of those operational questions
Sure.
for you. The stormwater management people have been out in the field. As I mentioned earlier, there is no significant flood activity in the city of Tulsa. They will be monitoring that situation throughout the evening, and information such as that, along with what we hope will be some very stable new information from the Corps, will dictate any information that may be forthcoming in the next several hours. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
This is Captain Mike Baker from the Tulsa Fire Department, Mayor Dick Crawford, and Bill Gamble, the division engineer for the Tulsa District.
What has it been like here tonight since you've been here at 10 o'clock?
Well, off and on, pretty quiet most of the time. We have had a few people wanting to go out on the bridge and wander up and down Riverside here. We've tried to keep them away from that. That's mainly what we're out here for, but other than that, it's pretty quiet.
What kind of problems did you see last night?
Problems, I wouldn't say any problems, other than maybe people, people just walking up trying to walk out on the bridge, sightseers mainly, that's about it.
What kind of danger is there here for people right now?
Oh, it's terrific danger. The water out there is terrible. It's terribly swift, turbulent. It's suicide to even think about getting near this place.
How has it been for the residents around here? Have you been walking the area at all?
No, we've stayed here right here at the bridge, try to keep people off the bridge. The residents are, as far as I know, they've been pretty well taken care of. We have people in the neighborhoods up there also to keep people from wandering in and out and stuff like that. So I think they're doing pretty well right now.
So once again, you had said there were people coming in. You had said about what time of the morning that was. Can you just go over all that again?
Well, we had them from 10 o'clock right up till 3 o'clock this morning. We had people coming out here wanting to go out on the bridge and stuff like that. So just pretty much all night.
And what is the danger here for the people?
The water is terribly swift. There's undercurrents, turbulence, holes you can step off in. It's just terribly dangerous to come out here.
So what do we need to tell people?
Stay away from the riverside.
All right, thanks.
see the top. It's the top of it. You couldn't see any of the concrete also.
It's been sun and it's going down.
Are you guys just taping this, or is it going to be a live broadcast?
Okay, I appreciate it, but we need some more people right here.
All right.
Can it do the interview now? Okay. Let's get you right there, right in front of everybody. Yeah.
Right there.
Okay.
Yeah. Come over a little closer to me. If you would, just turn your feet towards me.
Turn, face me.
Oh.
Exactly. Okay.
There you go.
Okay.
You look tired.
I am. We've been here a couple hours. I've become the official bag lady.
What's it like out here doing this kind of thing? How do you feel?
I feel like I'm helping somebody. It just kind of puts you on a natural high. And we got called up by the Bixby Police. We're with the Broken Arrow Civil Air Composite Squadron. We're here unofficially, helping out.
Why exactly are you doing this? Why are you helping us here today?
Well, because we live this part of our country, you know, even though I'm from Broken Arrow, I would want somebody to help me out, you know, if I was in trouble.
What does it say to you, the fact that so many people are out here working together to save homes that they don't even own, or help people they don't even know?
Well, I think it's clear that people still care about one another. You know, we're from all walks of life.
Physically, how are you holding up?
I'm getting very tired. My back, and that's most of everybody's complaints right now is their backs hurting. Morale's great.
How long will you stay out here?
Probably another couple hours and then go home and take care of the family. And then maybe come back.
Okay. Thank you very much. What is your name? Let me... Hold on, just one second. Okay, you're Pat Roberts. And you're from Broken Arrow?
Right now, they're
Kim.
Two shot though, two shots. Go ahead and get both of them in the picture. We'll just talk to them one at a time though.
Okay.
Who's gonna go first? Me. Okay. Whenever you're ready, guys.
Rolling.
Okay, first of all, what's your name? Where are you from and how old are you?
My name is Robin Harrington. I live in Bixby, Oklahoma. I'm 11 years old.
Okay, Robbie, what are you doing out here today?
Oh, we're loading up the trucks. When the people bag them, we're loading them up.
Okay, now your school is out. You could be doing lots of other things. Why are you out here?
Just help people, because we have people in the neighborhood that are flooding everything. Some of my good friends' houses are flooding. Just come out here to help them.
That's pretty nice. There were lots of kids out here today. Do you think, what did that say about you and your fellow classmates?
Just, I don't know. Just coming out to help people.
You feel good about what you're doing?
Yeah.
Okay, is your home affected by this?
No, we live on the hill over there, and we don't, it's not getting affected at all.
But you just care about other people?
Yeah, we're trying to help the old people and everything.
Stay right there, don't move. Okay, what's your name?
Danny Hudnall, and I live in North Heights up there by the Great Church, and I'm 14.
14, okay, spell your last name.
Hudnall.
Okay. Why did you come out here today?
Just to help the people that are having floods, but we never flood up there, so I was helping the people.
You could have been doing other things, couldn't you, today?
Yeah.
How do you feel about what you're doing and what your other friends are doing?
I don't know. I feel good, I guess. I think everybody should be out here.
Thank you very much. Let's get some shots. Hold on. Can we get some shots of you all? I help.
yesterday, I started out with an apology to the people of Tulsa. I want the people of Tulsa to understand what I was apologizing for and what I was not apologizing for. The apology is for the inability to give them the information that they need to plan very severe conditions, to plan what they're going to do and how to address the situation. I wish that we could give them more advance notice. There were times when we were telling people that we're going to change the releases from our major reservoirs just a matter of minutes before we had to initiate the changes, and that puts them in a real bind. And I'm sorry, that's just the way it is. Our system has not developed to the extent, it's not an exact science, and we haven't been able to develop it to the extent that we would like to. We'd like to give them hours notice because we realize it takes that time. I want you to understand that I was not apologizing for the procedures that we used, for the outcome, and everything that we did. Now, I talked about what I would change if I were doing it again, and I emphasized that I would not change in any way the procedures that we use and the basic policies that we went by. Obviously, when you get the results, when you get the data, and you can analyze it in hindsight rather than foresight, you would have made different decisions. We would have had releases at different times. There would not have been the same magnitude or the timing at either of those. And so I want to correct any conception that I'm here with my head hanging low as far as the Actioners Corps of Engineers. I am proud. I am extremely proud of the accomplishments. And I believe we saved many lives. We collectively saved many lives. And I hold up my head. Along those lines, there's some positive aspects that Mr. Brown will mention here in a few minutes. I will start out with another apology. I'm going to leave this press conference before it's over. I have a doctor's appointment, and I'm going to it. I've missed one this weekend. I'm going to this one. But during that time, after that, Mr. Brown and Mr. Scoggins will be available for as long as you need them, so we can talk details. The second part of this news conference is much more important than what I have just done. What I have just done is try to correct any mistakes in the past, but that's not important. What's important is the situation we're in right now. And the people of Tulsa should understand, if they don't understand anything else, the situation is very precarious right now. The sun is shining. The water is down in the city of Tulsa. It looks great. And there's a real tendency to relax. Well, it's all over. We got through this one. Well, that's not the situation. We are not out of the woods. And Carol Scoggins will update the situation, and we hope you understand that we've got lakes that are full, and just one major rain would put us back in the same situation we've been in the past week. So we are not in a position of relaxing our guard. And additionally, downstream of Tulsa, there's many areas that haven't been subjected to the real severe floods that they will be subjected to. Conditions there will get worse before they get better. So people need to understand that. With that said, what I would like to do is first let Mr. Brown mention some of the positive aspects that have occurred here. And then after he has done this, Carol Scoggins will do two things. He will update you on the current situation, which I think is most important. And after that, if you would like, we will reconstruct some of the events that have occurred in the past week, because I know a lot of people have questions about that. So, Bob, would you like?
I would like to read a statement, and the title of my statement is Media Responsiveness and flood control lakes provide warning and save lives. Primarily due to the total effectiveness of the media covering this storm event and to the flood control system in place in the Arkansas River Basin, many lives were saved compared to those lost in historic flood events before the current system was constructed. The very rapidity with which the rises occurred in the May 1943 flood caught hundreds unaware, and they were fortunate to escape with their lives, leaving behind most of their possessions and their livestock to perish. In addition to the property losses of that major flood throughout the same general area in the Arkansas River Basin, 26 lives were lost, and about 1.5 million acres were inundated, of which 630,000 acres were on the main stem of the Arkansas River Valley. The May 1943 flood occurred over a 2-week period. At that time, little flood protection measures were in place in the Arkansas River Basin. In comparison, the October 1986 flood has thus far resulted, as reported this morning, in only 1 death. That comparative small loss of lives is again attributable to the ample warning time provided and the media effectively using this time to make a valuable contribution in reducing the threat to public health and safety. This is even more substantial when the threat of lives in the basin is dramatic when comparing the two floods since the Oklahoma population.
Talk about the events that have occurred in the last week and the current situation. I will have to excuse myself.
First, I would like to give the present situation. Keystone Pool is presently on crest at elevation 755.82. The outflow right now is 170,000 cubic feet per second, and that's equal to the inflow. Caw Pool is presently at elevation 1045.37, or about 9/10 of a foot above its top of flood control pool. We began releases this morning from Caw and presently are releasing about 35,000 cubic feet per second. That 35,000 cubic feet per second will enter Keystone below the crest, or below the present inflow as the flow drops out, and will not cause the Keystone Pool to go back up. Oologah Lake is presently at elevation 660.65, and we have begun releases out of Oologah of 5,600 CFS and will increase to possibly up to 15,000 in the next day or two. It also is full. The Grand Lake system is 100% full, and we're presently discharging approximately 120,000 cubic feet per second. At Muskogee,
I'm sorry, are you letting that out of the Fort Gibson?
Right, that's coming out of Fort Gibson. Muskogee is presently at elevation 511 with a stage of 39.6, is presently on crest with about 400,000 cubic feet per second. That's about 5 feet above flood stage. The river will crest at Van Buren, Arkansas in the morning of the 8th, at about a stage of 35 feet, which is approximately 13 feet above flood stage. Discharge will be approximately 400,000 cubic feet per second. To cover the events that have occurred at Keystone Lake since the rains began, I'd like to go through a chronological summary. A week ago Friday, on the 26th of September, our entire system was empty, including Keystone. We had rains over the weekend, and then on Monday, the 29th of September, there was 6 to 8 inches of rain in the Tulsa, Bixby, and the Grand River system. Keystone at that time was elevation 725, or just 2 feet into the flood control pool. On Tuesday, the elevation of Keystone had risen to 732.7. The only releases from Keystone was hydropower, because the Grand River system was the fullest reservoirs in our system due to the rain that hit them previously, and they had the priority on what channel capacity there was at Van Buren. On Wednesday, October the 1st, Keystone Pool was elevation 741.67, and Bixby was experiencing considerable flooding in addition to downstream. So therefore, no releases were made out of Keystone, although the pool was 50% full. On Thursday, Keystone was elevation 748.09, and Hurricane Payne was feeding tropical moisture into the area. Large rains that day of 8 to 10 inches occurred, generally in an area northwest of Tulsa, and caused extensive flooding up and down the Arkansas and Cimarron River and the tributaries, the Caney River, and the rivers up above Bartlesville. At that time, that evening, our forecast showed approximately 400,000 cubic feet per second total could enter Keystone Reservoir. Based on the forecast, our primary concern became how much flood control storage did we have remaining, the options we had available to us, and warning people downstream. In analyzing the forecast, if the forecast was correct, that we would need to make releases early in order to make room for the inflow, in order that we would not fill to the top of induced surcharge pool, at which time we must pass whatever inflow is coming in. So if we delayed releases too long, we would fill before the crest came into Keystone and have to pass possibly up to 400,000 cubic feet per second through. The levees in Tulsa, West Tulsa, and Jinx were designed for 350,000 cubic feet per second. So we knew that this would create possible overtopping of the levees. At 10 p.m., we advised the news media to warn the people that we would need to start releases from Keystone in order to try to make sure that we did not fill Keystone before that crest entered. On Friday morning at 8 o'clock a.m., the Keystone Pool was elevation 750.13. At that time, we began releasing 12,000 cubic feet per second. But we kept increasing the discharge throughout the day until at 10 p. we had increased to 160,000 cubic feet per second, trying to allow as much time as possible for people to prepare for the further increases that would be necessary. At Friday, at midnight, our pool was elevation 752.37. And Saturday, our elevation had risen to 752.97. At 7 a.m., we increased the discharges to 220,000 cubic feet per second. And at noon, we increased them again to 250,000 cubic feet per second. At 2 p.m., we increased them to 280,000 cubic feet per second, and our information we had indicated that there may be still 380 to 400,000 cubic feet per second peak coming in. We could tell at that point in time that if we did not, based on the forecast, if we did not go ahead and increase to 300,000, that we would risk passing the peak, which could endanger the levees. Now, during this time, of this, we did have some difficulty with getting information from the field. The gauge at Perkins was virtually inaccessible. We had 3 different crews from U.S. Geological Survey trying to get in to make measurements and repair the gauge. The orifice or the pipe that feeds the information into the gauge had been completely washed away, and they had to establish a temporary orifice. They were able to get in and make measurements subsequent to our increase of 300,000, which indicated that the peak might not be 400,000, but might be something near 320,000. Therefore, on Sunday morning, we decreased our releases to 270,000 at 4:20 a.m. Based on continued monitoring of the gauges and information from the field that there had been a lot of debris pile up on the bridges, which was affecting the amount of water, the indication of how much water was there, but it was given somewhat of a high reading, was obvious, and we could tell that the volume wasn't as much as the original prediction. Therefore, we computed that we could decrease the discharge to 220,000 by noon and 170,000 CFS by 3:15 p.m. We've maintained that 170,000 cubic feet per second, and that is the present discharge. Our forecast is that Our forecast is that with the present discharge of 170,000 cubic feet per second, that the pool will return to elevation 754, or the top of flood control pool, sometime tomorrow afternoon. At that time,
Repeat. We strongly urge all persons in the following areas to begin movement to higher ground. Keystone Dam to 177th West Avenue on the north side of the river, bounded on the north by the Keystone Expressway, and on the south to the high ridge of the bank. From 177th West Avenue to 145th West Avenue on the north side of the river will be an area bounded on the north by Keystone Expressway and on the south by Highway 51. From the levee at Armco, bounded by the Keystone Expressway on the north. On the south, bounded by Highway 51, with the exception of Meadowwoods, and that will be backwater. In Sand Springs, from the levee to the river. Areas between the Keystone Dam and 65th West Avenue that are low-lying. Upper areas of Brookside, roughly between 22nd Street and 31st Street, east of the Arkansas River. Travis Park subdivision in the 31st and Detroit area. West Bank areas are generally 36th to 51st, including Cherry Creek Mobile Home Park and portions of Garden City. On the East Bank, 31st Street to 43rd, bounded on the east by Madison Place. An area north and west of the intersection of 21st Street South and 49th West Avenue. South of 51st Street to 56th Street, east of the river to Detroit, and generally low-lying areas between 61st and 71st Streets along the river. And finally, 101st Street to 111th Street, from Harvard to the river. Once again, we strongly recommend and urge persons in these affected areas to begin movement to higher ground. For those of you who have just joined us, the reason for this movement from the Corps of Engineers by the authority of Chief Hydrology and Hydrologics, Carol Scoggins, at 3 a.m., we received the discharge measurement from the U.S. Geological Survey for the Perkins gauge on the Cimarron River, confirming the original forecast for inflows into Keystone Lake. Also, additional rain has moved into the basin above Lake Keystone. Therefore, we must increase the releases from Keystone Lake significantly. Carol, would you finish this release and fill everyone in on schedule for those releases, please?
Okay, we will increase the release from 160,000 cubic feet per second to 190,000 cubic feet per second at 5 o'clock this morning. Additional releases will be made in excess of 250,000 cubic feet per second by noon. We will continue monitoring the inflows and make adjustments in the releases as conditions change. We will make the steps in the releases every 2 hours.
Thank you. Personnel in the Emergency Operations Center here are developing maps that we hope to be able to bring in shortly that may better explain the bounded areas. The areas that we have listed are fairly general in nature. Generally speaking, all people in low-lying areas along the Arkansas River within the boundaries that we so stated are strongly urged to start an orderly movement to higher ground. Thank you.
Do you anticipate that list of evacuation areas growing at all as the morning progresses?
Right now, we would say that that will depend entirely upon the information as it comes in from the Corps of Engineers and the National Weather Service. Very generally speaking, the areas that we have identified now are those that were projected on a level of about 250,000 to 300,000. Those, those areas were identified in an effort to get people started moving that may eventually also be affected by the rise of this water.
Excuse me right quick, is there any place in particular that you have them to move to, or that you could recommend them to move to?
Okay, we have a list right now of shelters as they have been established by the Red Cross. Central High School, 3101 West Edison. Webster High School, 1919 West 40th Street. Nimitz Middle School, 3111 East 56th Street. Holland Hall School, 5666 East 81st. The Downtown Y at 515 South Denver. In Sand Springs, Clyde Boyd Junior High School, 305 West 35th. In Charles Page High School, Adams and Park Roads.
Is there anything that emergency crews are doing now to help out, to help the people who may be in need of getting out of these neighborhoods?
Yes, Joe, all the emergency crews are on their way out into the field to start to alert individuals that may not be tuned in and listening to these broadcasts. They will be available to assist people in an orderly evacuation, we hope, an orderly movement to high ground. Whatever control measures can be taken by stormwater management crews to slow or contain some portions of the affected areas, that effort will be undertaken. We hope to be coming to you very soon with some information regarding command post locations, requests for volunteers, what things we may be asking from them, and where we would ask them to locate.
Will people soon be hearing warning sirens throughout town, in that area?
I don't have that information right now.
Captain Baker, do you have any idea how many people, how many homes we're talking about?
It's a little bit early on to make an estimate like that. We hope that we'll be able to get that kind of information for you later on. The primary concern right now is to get the word to those people that may ultimately be affected by this rising water and urge them strongly to start their movement towards higher ground.
Also, sightseers, there are a lot of them down by the pedestrian bridge. Would you urge people to keep away from that area?
We understand that there are some traffic problems all along the river, on both sides from Keystone Dam through the city of Tulsa. We would strongly urge that people that do not need to be in the area, please move out of the area.
Sir Scroggins, can you tell us what extent the flooding may be, say at noon tomorrow with this scenario?
I think that there's some maps that the city is going to make available here that would show the areas varies from place to place.
Depths, do you have any idea at all that you can tell the listeners?
Well, it's a lot better to look at the maps and see. Are you going to show the maps?
Yeah, we are trying to get those maps developed right now so that we can get them broadcast. We will be walking through those maps with everybody at that time. We hope that we'll be able to forecast some of the depths, but most importantly right now are to get those people, particularly in the upper reaches of the Arkansas River below Keystone Dam, moving towards higher ground. So as we develop those maps and get some more precise information, we'll be bringing that to you and asking for your assistance in passing that information along to everyone.
But Ridgestone, there's no real cause for panic, say in Brookside right now. Even if you open the gates more now, there'll be a period of some hours before the flow gets this far. Could you tell us about that time frame? Maybe take as a point of reference someplace in Brookside, maybe 41st Street, how long it take to get there, and so folks south of that, north of that could have an idea.
From Keystone Dam to 11th Street takes approximately 3 hours for the water to travel that far at this amount of discharge.
Final quick question. We just wanted to clarify something about the meteorologists back at the station. What you're basing the extent of the evacuations on, the amount of water that we're talking about, right?
Well, they were based on projections for a release from the dam of between 250 and 300,000 cubic feet per second. As you heard from Mr. Scoggins, we are anticipating a release of up to 250,000 cubic feet per second by noon. Is that correct?
Right.
And that could go higher.
That's right.
And by how much, do you know?
Right now, we don't have a handle on that right now. We're presently evaluating. We're going to keep looking at the gauges, and if we can make any adjustments, either up or down, we will. We'll have to.
Mr. Baker, do you have a current exact elevation of Keystone Reservoir during the last hour?
Mr. Scoggins?
It's around 752 elevation. It's presently about 2 feet below the top of the flood control.
29 feet above normal and 2 feet from the top.
Right.
Thank you all very much, and we will be getting back with you very soon.
That was Captain Mike Baker from Tulsa's Fire Department and Carol Scoggins, the Chief Hydrologist from the Tulsa area, or Tulsa District of the Army Corps of Engineers.
701 North Peoria, no key, 4700 North Peoria.
Diverting more towards the northeast. And this became a concern to figure out which path this heavy rainfall, since tropical storms are noted for volumes of rainfall, which path across the Central Plains, specifically Oklahoma, that storm was going to take. And here's a picture taken from the satellite about 10 o'clock this morning. And this is the coast of Mexico, and this is the storm center, and it's spreading. Here's Oklahoma. You can't see it. This is the area of rain that's going through this area at the present time. It looks like a long distance, but that storm center is forecast to move straight up towards Oklahoma. The problem is, what part of Oklahoma is it going to go through? And the initial moisture from the storm at about 12 noon had reached the Lubbock, Texas area. It's forecast into Oklahoma probably by sundown, the southwestern corner, and then it should be spreading across central and eastern Oklahoma sometime between 9 o'clock and midnight. And the whole event, the whole rain event, should only last about 12 hours. And then the heavy rain should move rapidly off to the northeast. The computers are estimating that the heaviest rainfall, this is the latest information we have as of about 11 o'clock, the heaviest rainfalls will be from northwest of Oklahoma City up to about Ponca City, and they'll be in the range of 5 inches, possibly up as high as 10 inches. And there will be tapering amounts, less amounts on either side of that corridor. We're using approximately 3 inches for portions around the Tulsa area. The whole situation is complicated by the fact that if there's a slight change either way of which track that storm is going to take, then we'll either get lesser amounts of rainfall, which we're hoping for, or we could get the heavier amounts, 5 inches or more. And we won't know that until the events start coming into this, to the state, and we can start following the rainfall on radar. I can say this, and it's historical only, but Oklahoma is visited by tropical storms, the remains of tropical storms every once in a while. And in October of 1983, from 10 to 17 inches of rain fell across south central and the central portions of Oklahoma from a tropical storm that went through the area at that time. Does anyone have any questions concerning my part?
So
It would cause some flash flooding in the area, definitely. I think Jack Sheridan will tell you that the flash flood values, we need very little rainfall to cause flooding because we're so saturated. And that was primarily the reason for this meeting, was the fact that the ground is so saturated. We were just trying to get a handle on where the rain. No, that is our maximum right now that we're looking at.
just a matter of degree.
That's right, that's right. And there's this, like I say, the storm is just crossing Mexico now. The moisture has pumped up into western Texas, the front edge of the moisture. And it's warm. As you can tell, we're starting to feel some of that warm air. Actually, the warm air that we're feeling now is coming out of the Gulf of Mexico. They're all funneling up this way. So, but right now, the heavy band is forecast northwest of us.
Any other questions?
Index for 8 states, really. In the Tulsa area, it's down about 1.1 inches of rain, and it's an inverted value. What it means that the first inch of rain would probably be required infiltration into the soil. Anything additional over 1 inch would probably go into runoff. Of course, it depends on the intensity of the storm, you know, whether you get 1 inch in a half hour or 1 inch in 4 hours. It makes a lot of difference. But as Ben said, I think it's going to move on through pretty fast, and it would probably drop rain pretty fastly. And we have creeks north of us, of course, Bird Creek, which is now cresting at Owasso, and will not recede for quite a while. I mean, maybe a day and a half, 2 days. So it'll certainly be there when this rain would come through. And we have Caney Creek north of us, which is completely out of banks up there now. And on the south side, of course, the Bixby's area, problems with Snake and Duck Creek on the south side. They have water in there, of course. So it depends on the small creeks where they can absorb some of the runoff and move on out. If it cannot get out, then it could be very serious.
What about the Arkansas River? People think the river's overflowing. Can you clarify what the status of that is?
Oh, no. Well, Arkansas is all right. We're maintaining a very low flow in Arkansas. I think, as comparatively, you might say, that the flood in the Arkansas will probably run around 200,000 flow. Right now, I think, out of the crest we had in the storm yesterday, we went through the Haskell gauge somewhere around maybe 50,000. So we're down about a quarter of the value. And of course, the Keystone Dam has taken all the drainage area away from us, and all we're getting is a local area from the Keystone Dam on down to
We're in a support role to both the community and to the state here, and in using our own people in an advisory type role at the request of the local community.
But you don't have men and equipment out there loading sandbags and things like that?
No, we do not.
Who could talk about plans, future plans to prevent situations like Skies from happening again? Would that be either of you?
Well, I can say that we've had planning efforts in the past on the system around Skytook. Currently, there are no authorized projects with the exception of Candy Lake. That is an authorized project, but there's a dispute on mineral rights there on Candy Lake construction. Skytook Lake, which is impounded this last year, has helped in that area.
Okay, any further questions of anyone?
Colonel, what was your first name?
First name is Alvin.
I'd like to say one more thing too, that the fact that we're concerned mainly about this tropical storm moisture for tonight and tomorrow morning. But when this event gets by, we're facing the prospects of some more possibility of severe thunderstorms and even some scattered heavy rains sometime Saturday and Saturday night, with another storm system that is coming out of the lower Rocky Mountains across New Mexico and Arizona at this time.
Could you say that again?
But I needed to add that we do have another rain event that may threaten the area Saturday and Saturday night, and that is an upper storm system that may possibly bring some severe weather and some scattered heavy rains across Oklahoma and northeastern Oklahoma. We've got to remember that those events occurred in something like 3 to 6 hours. The event of the last, that's just ending as of yesterday, has taken 24 to 48 hours. So.
Okay.
We're on. There's somebody. Here. Hello. Again?
Whoa!
On down, we got one.
Okay, you're right.
Hold up.
Hold up.
Hey.
I need to put some more on down here. Yes, too.
Is this going on the news?
Yeah.
Oh, good. I need to be on the news. My dad didn't know where I am. He's been gone for 24 hours.
Keep it mid-range with the tops too
in. So we go ahead and put them right there.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, we need some more right here.
Down here.
There we go.
Wait a minute. There's a light.
Right here. Right there.
Animal. Better send the garbage. Hey, garbage there.
Need some right there? Yeah.
No! You got me wet.
Okay, scoot on over this way.
Snow?
Yeah, there would be. We've got a hard job. Put the camera down, come on in.
Well.
Here's one right there.
Stuck. If you glad to laugh, we're not going to take it. How's it going, Lieutenant? Excuse me. Okay, let me step up here. Water out. Oops. Yeah. Drop it over. All right. Thanks a lot. Everybody careful, you get dirty.
Wet too, right?
So what brings you guys out here, huh?
Insanity.
No, seriously, you know, what is it that brings you out?
My daughter asked me to come out.
Uh-huh. You know, I mean...
We live on high ground, but we thought we'd come down here and help. I remember 1959. I held bags in 59 as a Boy Scout. And now I'm almost 40, and it's time to do it again.
I think most of us are out here to try to save these homes.
That's right. Pardon me?
I think most of us are out here to try to save these homes.
Exactly right.
Yeah, you know, I mean, wouldn't it be easy just to stay at home and watch television tonight, or?
Sure. It'd be easier, but it'd be selfish.
It'd be selfish.
Yeah, I hope to think these people do the same for us if we ever got needs. But what gets me is these people that live in these homes, some of them are sitting and watching us do the work. Yeah, put that bag over there, put that one over here.
Where do you want these guys, over here?
A lot of people don't spot them because it's talking.
We got a lot of problems with the
There's enough over. There's something they try to get it closed in, but it's still coming up on them.
Hang on, Rand.
Oh, that's good.
Go.
Lord, bad. Good God Almighty.
We barely got it down here.
There we go. Wait a minute. Okay, ready?
Let's get this thing out.
You're gonna hand me that oar? I'm just gonna throw them over the side.
Yeah.
Let's dump
Got
this
it?
water out of this boat. Yeah, pick it up.
Front wheels. Straighten them out. You got them.
Turn his wheels.
Turn your wheels. Turn.
Okay, Pete. Okay, what has it been like here the past few hours?
Well, mostly just a lot of people coming in trying to bag it up. It seems like the flow right now out of the dam is starting to get in here, and it's seeping pretty good. And primarily just trying to bag what we can to see if we can keep it from going up into the residences.
What kind of damage are we looking at so far?
Water damage-wise to the property, just mostly yard damage right now.
What other kind of problems are there? I understand there's others.
Well, we've had some people down here that we don't know whether they should be down.
USA campaign focuses on the problems and opportunities facing young people today. In conjunction
to you a message from the National Weather Service. It came off the wire. Most of you probably have seen this. The floodgates of Keystone Dam must be opened further to release extreme flood inflows to the lake from the Arkansas and Cimarron rivers. Gates will be opened gradually as needed during the night and into the morning until the necessary outflows are reached to prevent overtopping the structure. Unleveled areas between Keystone Dam and Muskogee will sustain various depths up to about 7 feet with very swift and dangerous currents. The stage in Tulsa could approach 22 feet by noon tomorrow, October 4th. This could mean depths up to 7 or more feet along Riverside Drive and into nearby residential areas. Persons near Sand Springs, in Tulsa Brookside, Bixby, Leonard, and points downstream should act now to protect lives and property. Evacuate uphill by the shortest route away from the river. Do not attempt to walk or drive through water of unknown depth. It says that further information will be issued this evening as soon as possible. There's a strong point that we would like to make right now. The information that we have about the flow from Keystone is as follows, and this may temper some of the moving activities of the citizens. As of 5:30 p.m. this evening, 110,000 cubic feet per second was being released from Keystone Dam. At that time, an additional 10,000 cubic feet per second was added to total 120,000 cubic feet per second release at that time, 5:30 p.m. At approximately 6:30 p.m., another 20,000 cubic feet was added to that release to bring to a total 140,000 cubic feet per second released from the dam at Keystone. Now, we were made aware earlier on that we could expect regular increments of increased flow of water from Keystone Dam through 1 p.m. tomorrow afternoon, possibly to 250,000 cubic feet per second. Our latest report from the Corps of Engineers indicates that as the night progresses and flow rates are observed, the 250,000 cubic foot per second anticipated release may not be necessary. Now what that means, and this is very important, is that the flow as it has been explained to us is anticipated to reach the Tulsa area within about 6 hours from the rising increments. That does give people some time. We have made our best effort to gather the most accurate information in the shortest period of time to give everyone as much warning as possible. Stormwater management is in the process of developing projections on the increased increments of water flow as they occur. They will be meeting with you here in a very few short moments when they have the projections of potentially affected areas in a form that will be easily understood by everyone. The Red Cross is in the process of establishing shelters throughout the city. The location of those shelters is not available to us right at this moment. We will get that information to you as quickly as we have it. It was indicated to us initially that we may not expect that information until 10 o'clock. If we do receive that information prior to that time, we'll ask you to help us to get that on the air as quickly as possible. That is all the information that we have at this moment. The projections from Stormwater Management will be here momentarily. Thank you. The increments of water flow as that information is made available to you. Now, as we had promised before, we have some information from Stormwater Management that we would like to share with everyone, and this is very important, that the information be understood correctly. Please let me start this again by saying that the current flow is at 140,000 cubic feet per second. This does not create any significant flooding problems for Tulsa proper at this time. 5 areas have been identified as probably impacting from a release of 170,000 cubic feet per second from Keystone Dam. At a 170,000 cubic foot release, the first area would be the intersection of 30th and Detroit. This would be very minor in nature. The second area, 30th Street to 31st Street south on Cincinnati. That also would be minor in nature. The third area, in the Place 1 apartments, that would be minor street flooding. The fourth area, 30th Street to 37th Street on South Cincinnati, where approximately 8 housing units would be involved at this 170,000 cubic foot per second flow. The fifth area is the Cherry Hills Mobile Home Park, west of Elwood and east of the railroad tracks, where minor street flooding also would be expected. Now, if I may touch upon the fourth area one more time, that being the 30th to 37th Street on South Cincinnati, where we mentioned that 8 units may be affected. Those areas and the others that we listed as expecting minor flooding, Stormwater Management officials are preparing to sandbag and hope that no serious flooding would occur at the 170,000 cubic foot per second flow. Now, before we close this session, I want to make a strong point again that we are currently flowing at 140,000 cubic feet per second from Keystone Dam. There is no significant flooding danger at this time. The projections that we have just made were projected at a flow from Keystone Dam of 170,000 cubic feet per second. As I mentioned, we will be receiving information from the Corps of Engineers on the half hour regarding any increased flow from the dam, and we will be making that information available to you. Thank you very much. Once again, I would like to let everyone know that we have recently received word from the Corps of Engineers that the flow of water from Keystone Dam has been increased to 160,000 cubic feet per second. Now, we have quite a body of information to cover, and I realize we have a short period of time, so I will try to make this as clear as possible. With the significant increase in the flow from the Keystone Dam, we are expecting then to approach here in the city of Tulsa closer to the projections at 170,000 cubic feet per second that we offered to you earlier. However, we currently have no flooding conditions within the city itself. As to the increase to 160,000 and how it will affect some other areas within the county, west of Sand Springs, from the Keystone Expressway on the north side to Highway 51 on the south. We would urge everyone that is not protected by the levee to seek higher ground. With this increase in flow from Keystone Dam, those residents may expect up to 2 feet of water, particularly in the areas of Town and Country Estates and Candlestick Beach. We feel it very important to mention also that they may expect swift water. In the Bixby area, the low-lying areas on either side of the river will probably receive somewhat less than 2 feet. That would be 1/4 mile on the south side of the river and 1/2 mile on the north. In addition to that, we have information from the police in Bixby that there will probably not be a significant problem in Bixby from this increase to 160,000 cubic feet, as the police are sandbagging and the lead time that is allowed by the distance from the dam should allow them to control the additional flow there. Now, let me go on with some other rather important information. We also are aware that the Red Cross and the National Guard are making some rescues in the Leonard area currently. Invalids and senior citizens to be evacuated in the Tulsa area may call EMSA at 587
Captain Mike Baker, the Tulsa Fire Department, just reiterating what he said. They have increased the flow from Keystone Dam from 140,000
MTTA transportation out of any possibly affected areas.
We have no flooding conditions in the city itself.
MTTA also has 5 buses standing by for larger scale evacuations.
Protected by the levee.
tell me what effect...
Should I talk to the camera?
Talk to me. Talk to me. Come on, the camera. You tell me what effect radar, the use of radar, would have had on this particular situation.
Well, if their system had been set up so that they could have used the radar data that was confirmed by a limited number of surface reports, then they would have been able to know to make moderate, small releases starting much earlier than they did, and that would have ultimately allowed the flood crest that came all the way from Sand Springs through Bixby and the Tulsa area to be about 2 foot less than what it ultimately was.
I'm going to give you a chance. I don't know that we'll use it, but let's see. Why don't you tell me what you think of the way the people of the Corps handled, given what they had to work with?
I think that the Corps did the best job that they could have, given the regulations and the system that they have to work with. I know that those people have been working extremely hard in a situation which they never before have faced.
What do you give me? What's the matter?
Oh, you're right.
The time frame. Give me what was happening Thursday night and Friday morning, which led you to make phone calls to question whether or not some releases should have started from the Keystone Dam.
Well, first of all, there were heavy showers and thunderstorms over much of the crucial area, and by the crucial area, we're talking about what drains into Keystone Lake. There were heavy rains in that area Thursday afternoon, and into Thursday evening. Then, as Thursday evening turned to Thursday night, the moisture from Hurricane Payne was coming right into that same area, north and west of Tulsa in north central Oklahoma, where the Arkansas and Cimarron rivers catch it, and it runs into Keystone Lake.
I need to ask you the Monday, Thursday question over again.
Right.
Would it have been better for them to have released earlier in the week, and you can explain why you think?
Well, I have to agree with the Corps that it would have been irresponsible to release more water in the Monday through Thursday afternoon period, with the threat of additional heavy rains and local flooding in Tulsa. If they had released more water from Keystone Dam, that could have aggravated the whole situation, particularly for around Bixby.
What about further downstream? You know, I haven't talked to them yet, but I may. One of what we've heard a lot of is all these converge down towards Arkansas, and that we could have done more damage by releasing early. No pun intended, but why may that not hold water?
2, 1. There's no question that if large volumes of water had been released out of Keystone Dam earlier in the week, it would have caused more serious flooding to occur downstream. And even Thursday night and Friday morning, the period of question that we're most concerned about, if they had increased the release, it would have had some additional effect on the downstream flooding. But it appears that that effect would have been much, much less, very, very minor, compared to the difference in 2 foot of the high water mark that occurred on Saturday night and Sunday.
I want to ask what I'm calling the hindsight question. People can say, hey, it's a week later, we're sitting here, it's sure easy to look back in hindsight. Why is it that you were able to make the phone calls Thursday and Friday, and why is it that we're not saying just, oh, it's easy to look back, but it's something perhaps that they should have been able to consider at the time it was happening? Technology, is that the basic? I mean, that's what I'm getting after. They're not using the technology. Is that correct?
3, 2, 1. Well, their system does not make use of radar data at all. What it does is it takes the rainfall information after it's all been collected, then feeds it into a computer that runs a model to indicate how much water is going to be flowing down the rivers and streams. But with the state of the art currently, the radar information, when it is backed up by even a limited number of surface reports of actual rainfall, does provide very important information as to what is occurring at the time. And if they just could have taken advantage of that information in their system, which of course they couldn't because of the way their system and their regulations operate, they would have been able to know to start making some small releases much earlier.
Let me ask you something about those regulations. Again, I don't know if we'll use this, but the fact that they did go ahead and even break those regulations in what was a prudent move. I mean, what do you think about what they did as far as breaking those
I think they should be commended down at the Corps for somewhat overstepping what their regulations told them. If they had followed their regulations to the letter, they wouldn't even have started releasing the water that they did. Even as late as they did on Friday morning, their regulations were still telling them to hold off. So they did take risk on themselves in going past their regulations to do what they did.
That's fine. Now, is there anything else that you think is important, that you think we need to put in there that I haven't covered that you'd like to cover?
Can we ask him where we're going to go from here? Maybe get your opinion as a meteorologist. I mean, maybe we need something from you
Yeah, Yeah, here we go. Right, let's do it.
How they can work in your...
I think it's vitally important that we learn some things from this situation. I think one thing we can learn is that sometimes we don't have the time to wait to get all the rainfall data in and to analyze it all completely before we might have to take some steps. And I think in the future, if they are able to integrate some of this rainfall data into the system using some of the estimates from radar combined with the service reports, rather than waiting till after all the rain is pretty much over with before assimilating into their model and then taking action, I think that could make a difference in the future. And in this case, it certainly seems like it could have made a difference of about 2 feet in the ultimate crest that came from Bixby and Tulsa down from Sand Springs.
I'm going to ask you an ignorant question, but I may want you to answer it instead of me. What difference would that have made if they would have done it? I mean, tell me what difference 2 feet makes. And don't say 2 feet. I mean, relative to the number of homes and all that.
I don't know exactly.
I don't want you, but I mean, does it mean that when there were 2 feet of water in a home, the home would not have had water?
Right. What we're saying about a difference of 2 feet in the ultimate flood crest means that all those houses that had 2 feet of water or less in them would have completely escaped the flooding.
Okay. Scott, can you think of
I also need to paint a picture of the earlier week in green country, just heavy rain. Paint a picture of what was happening then and how Hurricane Kane entered the picture.
Right, yeah. During the period Monday through Thursday, all types of phenomenal rainfall was occurring around Oklahoma. We've been stuck in a stagnant jet stream pattern where the moisture just continued to flow up from the Gulf of Mexico and be dumped out by thunderstorms over various portions of Oklahoma. It hit one part of the state and then another, and that set the stage by Thursday so that when Hurricane Kane came along, the additional rainfall totals with that combined with everything that had already fallen actually pushed the rainfall amounts in north central Oklahoma close to what they would have had in an entire year in just a 5-day period.